talk about technology for a minute, just because I think there's some sense that people are feeling overwhelmed. They've got multiple channels and multiple devices, and they're connected to it 24/7, and the amount of information that we have to consume is overwhelming. And I talk to executives, they're getting over 300 emails a day, not to mention the time that's required to learn and manage and master the suite of new technology and tools that's constantly changing, right? Yeah. So what advice would you have on balancing that and managing it?
It's very difficult. I mean, I think two things. One, I think you've got to pick a couple that work and feel good for you, right? Pick a few, but you also have to stay flexible enough. A big tip I'll give to people is it's no longer about how you want to communicate. It's about how the person you're trying to communicate wants to receive that information.
So meet people where they are. Meet
people where they are without losing who you are. That to me is key though. How can I meet you where you are without losing who I am? I'm not saying to the 60-year-old executive, you really need to be just hammering away on Twitter. I'm not saying you got to do that, but what I find so often is there is a portion of the workforce that grew up doing business face-to-face. Right? And that is the default mode of communication. And they will say, and I know you hear this too, of you cannot resolve conflict or challenges through email. You have to have face-to-face. The best way to be able to communicate ultimately is to touch them, at a minimum pick up the phone and call them. But the reality is now if you're going to think about the future of work, you have new people that are coming in that have only ever learned how to communicate through the screen. And so their default mode might be that, right? And so can you be flexible there? But conversely, I also say to those young professionals that are coming up, you have to work on your face-to-face skills as well. If I'm going to meet you where you are, and I've got a colleague I'm working with who I know appreciates a phone call, or when I go down to their office and interact with them face-to-face, you got to do it.
Like when I leave you a voice message, I appreciate a phone call back and not a text message, right? Is that right?
It is. Yes. When you leave a voicemail and I text you back and say, what's up? And you're like, what's up is pick up your damn phone. That's one of my favorite stories. So I learned to do that with you though, right?
And the other thing is, I deal with a lot of sales organizations, and the reality of that transformation is you better be where your customers are. And if your customers are consuming content and information and spending time in these new platforms, and that's influencing their decision, then boy, you better be aware of that and be there too.
I'm so glad you brought up the sales side of it, because in adapting to change, those people are in the heat of that battle. And I think a great example, just an example that popped into my mind, I was working with a group of executives in the promotional product space, small group, 25 leaders. We're talking about these different communication channels and tools. And one of them did say, and again, this is a senior group, one of them said, okay, I can be flexible, but let me tell you something. If you have a conflict with a customer, you have to pick up the phone and you have to call them. You got to nip it in the butt. You can't resolve it over email. There's too much room for interpretation and things get missed. And of course, everyone in the room is nodding their head like, yeah, he's right. And it's not that I disagreed with him, but I simply asked him a question. I said, okay, I agree with you, but let me ask you this. Do you have any millennial customers showing up now, 30 years of age or under customers? And he said, yeah, we've got some. I said, have you ever had a conflict or a problem with any of those customers? He thought about it and he's like, yeah, I guess we have. I'm like, did you try to call them to resolve that? He's like, yep. Did they answer the phone? No. How did you get a hold of them? Well, they sent an email back. I said, do you still have that customer today? Did they stay with you? Were you able to resolve it? Yeah, we did. Oh my gosh. So what you're saying is you resolved the conflict via email or technology. Now, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong or better or worse. I'm just saying, again, back to that flexibility and adaptability, your default mode might not be the only way that works. And I think salespeople are right in the middle of that right now.
So you got to open it up.